There is a quicker way, but it is worse than the inn itself. Rape. You must rape her consciousness.
Well, here we are, from the prequel to the prequel sequel to the original. It's been a ride and it's time to put the universe to rest. Of Orcs and Men is a tactical action RPG released by Cyanide Studio, a French studio best known for releasing a pro cycling manager every year. Of Orcs and Men wasn't received well, with most of the grievances being similar to mine, so I'm not alone in what I'm about to say in the review. On the Icerian continent where the game takes place, the human emperor Damocles has declared war on the Greenskins, hunting them down, enslaving them, and razing their villages. The Greenskins, Goblins, and Orcs have been fighting back, and the Greenskins are losing. Archive, the Bloodjaw tribe, one of the two characters you play throughout the game, is given a damn near impossible task to end the war once and for all.
My brothers, we must strike our enemy's head. Today, we are setting off to kill the Emperor.
Graphically, it's not impressive. Textures are rough, models are unimpressive, and everything looks like it belongs on the PlayStation 2. If that doesn't convey how bad this game looks, let me remind you that this game came out in 2012. It was definitely following the trend of be brown and bland that Call of Duty started. Natural Selection 2 was released that same year by a studio with a much smaller catalog. It wasn't a looker when it came out either, but when looking at them side by side should at least tell you I'm being fair. If you're epileptic or photosensitive, close your eyes for this next part. Most of the game is dark, which isn't that bad of a thing. It helps hide some of the ugly textures. That's a trick every studio does, so I'm not faulting them for that. What I am faulting them for is some of their lighting effects. Namely, one you'll see at the beginning of the game. One of the first levels you'll play flashbangs you every second like a 9-banger just came through your window. You can open your eyes now. One of the best looking areas is towards the end of the game, but it doesn't make up for how dark and dingy the rest of the title is. I get that it's dark fantasy and that they have to check certain boxes, but I genuinely doubt anybody reputable thought this looked good when it came out. Like I said, reputable. Sound design wise, there's nothing special. Beyond swords clashing, archive stomps, and generic ambience, it's bare bones. But at the end of the day, it's serviceable. The soundtrack was created by French composer Olivier de Rivière, and let me tell you, it's the highest of high points for this game. It's a typical fantasy soundtrack, but it does stand out in some aspects. Olivier would later go on to compose the Plague Tale series soundtracks. I can't say that environments exist, at least not to the scale where it actually matters. It's more or less walking down hallways. Sure, it might branch off or circle back, but it's very constricting on where you can go. Like, yeah, this is a cool fantasy sewer. Too bad I'm playing what feels like the equivalent of a 3D on-rails game. The real shame here is that there are some cool concepts here, like the Mire, a prison housing orcs who are forcing the slave labor that simply can't be expanded upon because of the environmental and overall game design. So when exploring the world, expect the maps to look like this. Most of the gameplay is going from point A to point B, killing everything along the way. Level navigation is absent, with the only joy being the janky combat system. There are some side quests that you'll either pick up while you're already in a level that are just side stops, or ones that you get in hub areas that teleport you to a level to fight through. Just rinse, wash, repeat that through the entire game. Before I start on the combat gameplay, let me break it down. The characters you control both have an offensive and defensive stance. Archive's offensive stance is built around him doing a lot of damage and building rage. I'll get to that later. His defensive stance is built around being tanky and aggroing nearby enemies to focus on him. Styx, being the assassin that he is, can be thrown to a distant enemy that Arkai can't reach. Styx can also focus for improved critical damage, stun enemies with bombs, or go completely ranged as a defensive stance. Additionally, Styx can sneak around an area and kill off a few enemies before the fight actually starts to give you an advantage. In every area this is an option, do it. It's easy to get stun locked in this game, so it's best to play it safe. The combat here is also rinse, wash, and repeat. It uses an action queuing system where you can either press a representative button on console or PC, slow down time, and queue actions. Now this does slow down the flow of combat, but you can assign them the hotkeys, but that's not without a huge drawback. Hotkeys only work for the selected character. If I bind keys 1 through 4 for Arkai skills, that doesn't mean I can bind 5 through 9 to Styx. I have to switch to Styx to queue his actions, which leads to combat feeling clunky. It's very much the same combat system that Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 had. If you don't have any actions queued, Styx and Arkai will just auto attack in whatever stance you left them in. It's simple, but at times it's so easy to just say fuck it and watch Styx and Arkai do the work. But that's not very engaging. Arkai and Styx also have access to different pieces of gear you can either find out in the world or be bought from vendors who can also upgrade said equipment. The gear itself is pretty solid within the confines of Orcs and Men, but it's very lackluster when compared to other titles. Which what I see here was the devs doing their due diligence of not putting anything grossly overpowered into the game. They played it safe, and that's okay. Both characters have unlockable skills that can be upgraded at least once. Skills like Arkai taunting enemies to pull aggro off Styx, or Styx applying poison to his daggers to do some sweet damage over time. Fans have come up with multiple builds and even gear to complement those builds, like making Arkai an absolute tank, for example, or making him an absolute wrecking ball when he mixes up his catabolic steroids for anabolic ones instead. You see, Arkai has a rage meter that goes up when he deals damage or gets hit. There are ways to mitigate that, but let's be real. It's much more fun just to let the bar fill up and watch his inner rage gamer come out. Be careful though, he'll attack anyone he sees, including Styx. Finally, expect a lot of dialogue. I mean a lot of it. There are choices you can make to resolve a conflict or how you should approach a challenge, but they resolve exactly the same. There is no post-game. Once you beat the game, you see the credits roll and are sent back to the main menu. Your last save takes you to the final stage before the boss. This is one of the few titles that I can honestly say doesn't need a new game plus, mainly because I don't think anyone out there is masochistic enough to want to play this again right away. Of Orcs and Men took me roughly 10 hours to beat, but it feels like only 6 of them were well thought out. When we get to the story segment, I'll explain why. Without spoiling anything, I'll say that it loses most of its meat in the second-ish half of the game. The camera can be a hindrance at times and overall makes an already janky experience even worse. The camera feels like it came straight from 2004. It's awkward when switching between characters and an absolute liability within combat. Pathing is downright exploitable. If you're in a tough spot and one of your characters are down, all you have to do is run in circles until you can safely res them. I figured this out later in the game using it to my advantage whenever I could. Lastly, the amount of animations here is laughable. It's likely there wasn't any room in the budget to add more. I swear to God, if I ever play this game again, I'm going to take a shot whenever Styx points at the floor. The story here starts off pretty strong. Killing an emperor is a tall order and a great hook. If you don't want spoilers, go to here. Arkai of the Bloodjaws is the lucky orc tasked with this impossible mission. The chief of the Bloodjaws lays out the plans. Meet the contact so he can guide you past the wall separating the southern orc lands from the humans. Meet up with a resistance cell in the mire, a massive prison in the lower parts of an inquisitorial tower. Then storm the tower to free the High Mage Arkans, who will take you to the Isle of Laments to assist you in assassinating the Emperor. It sounds like a lot, but is conveniently separated into chapters, each one focusing on one of the previously mentioned tasks. Chapter 1 starts us out approaching the wall, meeting our other protagonist, Styx, the foul-mouthed goblin we all should know and love at this point. He leads Arkai into the city to meet up with the Black Hand Gang, who is also helping you to get past the wall. While on your way to the hideout, you have your first encounter with the High Inquisitor. For some context, the Inquisition is meant to lift the humans above the other races, but also keep control over their sinful human members, i.e. punish those who don't follow the rules. They're the strong-arm tasked with subjugating the greenskins. Once at the Black Hand Holdout, the hub area of Act 1, you start doing side quests, meeting characters with their own motivations, and meet up with Sarkis. Sarkis knows of a tunnel that leads to the other side of the wall, but won't tell them unless they do something for him first. Typical video game bullshit. Sarkis can be best described as a goblin tamer. He experiments on them to try to understand them. The Inquisition has been rounding them up and slaughtering them, and Sarkis wants you to make them pay. So you do. You sneak your way through the streets, fighting guards, and do what every Norwegian death metal band does. Burn a church to the ground. The High Inquisitor happens upon the two in the act and begins hunting them down throughout the game. At least it implies that, but we don't see him again until the end of Act 3. After doing the job for Sarkis, he does what any morally great character in a dark fantasy setting does and betrays the duo, making another character named Raven do it for him. It goes about as well as you'd expect. The duo returned the favor.
No, don't do this! They haven't been prepared! Please!
Afterwards, they fight through the sewers to the other side. They've gotten past the wall with a carriage waiting on them.
The hell are you doing?
Relax. Do what you're told. You'll live longer.
Styx betrays Arkai, but not in the way you'd expect. Arkai needed a believable way into the mire. What better way than being captured? You are now in Chapter 2, which takes place in the Mire, a prison/mine where the orcs work until they collapse and die. It's also located at the base of a tower that the High Mage Archance is being imprisoned in. Your hub area here is a small hideout that the guards have forgotten about, and it feels like it with how cramped it is. Most of the story beats here revolve around contributing to the resistance by killing key figures and resolving some issues the other orcs have. While preparing a revolt against the humans to storm the tower, an important figure shows up, named Barrowman. No, not that Barrowman. No, not that one either. This Barrowman is a long-lost relative, I think. There's no definitive answer where on the family tree he is, but it really doesn't matter. Of Orcs and Men was the first game in this universe, so it's no surprise Styx doesn't have anything witty to say. Barrowman, the advisor to the Emperor, explains that he doesn't agree with the war and that he supports their cause. He explains how to free Archance before leaving. A few missions later sees Arkai and Styx assaulting the tower and freeing Archance.
Not really, no. I mean, are you sure about this? You're really gonna throw me over there?
Styx, there's not much time. Trust me.
Fuck! Fuck!
She's wounded and the only way they can think of to save her is to take her to the Mage Monastery. On to Chapter 3 we go. Let me take a moment to highlight the fact that up to this point, the game did a pretty damn good job of setting things up to go on a suicide mission to kill the Emperor. Up to this point, Arkai and Styx have been working with small groups that want to see the Emperor's head on a pike. Everyone has their own individual reasons for wanting him dead, and it's nice to see the inside of the war against the Greenskins. Chapters 1 and 2 took me roughly 3 to 4 hours each to complete, and got me really invested into the story. Most of you may think to yourself, okay, you earned the favor of a group in each chapter to help you out in the final battle of the game, which is a reasonable thought process, but no. Chapters 3, 4, and 5 all took about an hour each to complete. The pacing goes from something somewhat slow and digestible to speedrun mode. I don't even think Roger Roach was ready for speeds like this. So if I'm being really bare bones on these next bits, it's because the game is too. You bring Archance to the monastery and begin to... You commit... Fuck it. I'll let this crazy old man explain.
You must rape her consciousness.
Yeah, you do that. Arkai and Styx face some inner demons and get some new powers. The High Inquisitor finds you and chases you out of the monastery. Let me remind you, I'm not skipping over side quests or anything like that. The game is simply out of content and is rushing players to the end. After one mission, Chapter 3 comes to a close. Chapter 4 takes place in the best looking zone of the game, the Isle of Laments, where the Emperor has summoned the Dwarven and Elven leaders to join the war against the Greenskins. Arkai and Styx fight their way through the best looking level in the game, sneak into the meeting place, and assassinate the Emperor.
Ah, there you are, Greenskin. Come in, please.
Barrowman was using Arcai the whole time. I'm even convinced that he talked the Bloodjaws into accepting the mission. Barrowman convinced the Greenskin to assassinate the Emperor while high-ranking officials of other races were present. If that's not bad enough, Barrowman is now in power and knows of all the resistance cells that were working against the Emperor. Additionally, since the High Mage Arkans helped Arcai and Styx, Barrowman declares all mages accomplices to the murder of the Emperor. Styx rescues Arcai, and that's the end of Chapter 4. Between Chapters 4 and 5, Barrowman has the Orcish Resistance, Black Hand Gang, and mages hunted down and executed. There are only a few key characters left at this point to begin the attack on the Inquisition's tower to confront Barrowman and end the Greenskin Holocaust. Arcai and Styx fight their way up the tower, load explosives into the elevators, and kill Barrowman.
I will have you all killed. All of you.
You'll have to survive this first.
I'm not speeding through this. This is legit it. Aside from walking down hallways and killing enemies, there's nothing of substance here. Right afterwards, we're treated with the final boss fight against the Grand Inquisitor. Which feels strange here since he doesn't really feel like the bad guy. But whatever, I was done with the game at this point. You kill him and are treated to the final cutscene. So did Arcai complete his mission? Yeah, he did, but not without a cost. The dwarves and elves have joined the war against the greenskins, and with the tower being destroyed, that's just more fuel to the fire. Although a setup to a sequel could be argued with our duo taking on dwarves and elves, development went into making Styx a standout character with his own games, and Cyanide is better off for it. Is Of Orcs and Men a good game? While I can appreciate the world they've created and also appreciate the combat system they tried here, overall it's just not good, even by 2012 standards. Should you give it a try? That's up to you. I've seen it go for as low as $1.50 on Steam, so if you want to try it, that'll be a good price to get it at. Honestly, you just be wasting your time and money. Watch a playthrough of it instead. Of Orcs and Men is a game that tried a few different things, but ultimately feels like a slog. It can be fun at times, but overall it causes boredom because of the limiting levels, repeating gameplay, and absurd amount of exposition. If you ever wonder what a game looks like either without direction or losing direction midway through, look no further than Of Orcs and Men.